When we engineered stress out of our lives, we also inadvertently engineered resiliency out of our lives as well. Stress, in the case that we're talking about, there's a U-shaped curve, right? So you have a little bit of stress is good. No stress leads to stagnation, and too much stress leads to other things like disease. Those microdose stressors are kind of the tap into our biology and the tap into essentially build resiliency.
Welcome to the Foundational Health Podcast, where we provide education and inspiration to help guide you on your journey to look better, feel better, and most importantly, heal better. Hello, and welcome back to the Foundational Health Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kevin Schultz, and today is my first ever in-person discussion. I'm here with my good friend, Aaron Foster, who is certified in personal training and corrective exercise. He's got a certification in holistic nutrition, as well as extensive training in functional nutrition. And honestly, most importantly, he is self-taught on anything and everything. Aaron, along with Colton, the man behind the camera, are my two business partners here at Foundational Health. And more importantly, they're just amazing people and great friends. So if you're a regular listener, you probably know that I live and breathe anything and everything health related. And it's not very often at all that I run into someone that I can carry on a conversation about anything health related, and they're on the same page and the same level as me. Well, not only is Aaron on the same page, but he absolutely takes it to the next level. I'm not sure I've had a discussion with Aaron on anything whatsoever that he doesn't blow my mind with his knowledge. In fact, I have no problem admitting he knows more than I do on almost every topic we have ever discussed. Today, we're going to dive into two of those topics, biohacking and lab testing. And now for my discussion with my good friend, who's young enough to be my son, Aaron Foster. So I think it must have been like 10 years ago now, approximately, because my oldest daughter, Caprice, is 11 and a half years old, that Sarah and I were praying for the perfect nanny to show up in our lives. And in walks Taylor, now your wife, into my adjusting room as a new patient and getting her beautiful baby Presley adjusted. And I remember right after that conversation with her and right after she left, I instantly went back to my office. I texted Sarah and said, I think we just found our nanny.
For me, it was the exact same thing, except I knew she was going to be my wife. So I had just recently got out of the Air Force. I met her online. At the time, I was diagnosed with chronic inflammatory demyelinating polyneuropathy. When I saw you, I was on 7 medications. That was my first adjustment with you. I came to visit her at the office that one day. And I remember seeing in your office you had that box that was full of empty pill bottles.
Our freedom bin, we call it.
Yeah, the freedom bin. And so I thought that was incredible. And I was just like, wait, I'm here to get my spine aligned. I did not put the 2 and 2 together, that holistic wellness and all of that was together. And for me, knowing that I'm taking 7 medications, sometimes twice, 3 times a day, getting intravenous immunoglobulin was not pleasant by any means. But seeing that freedom bin made me feel some sort of hope. And I remember just writing down on your intake form, those 7 medications, I just felt sick to my stomach. And my wife is the one who definitely got me out of that. And she, I believe, learned a significant amount of that from you, and just being your nanny, and hearing about your lifestyle and the way that you guys live. And so she definitely changed my life. You changed my life, and here we are years later in business together and good friends. So it's been a ride.
Yeah, it absolutely has been. And I already said in the intro, and I mean this like wholeheartedly, like I don't know that I ever have a conversation with anybody else besides you where I'm like, holy cow, he knows more than I do. It doesn't matter what topic we talk about, you are able to take it to the next level. And so much of that is just because like you're similar to my wife, where you're just a sponge for information and so much of it is self-taught. And if something makes sense to you, you just want to dive right into that. And biohacking, which I don't talk a whole lot about on this podcast, but biohacking is one of those topics that I know like you and I just love to discuss because to me, it just makes so much sense. And now for our listeners that are not familiar with biohacking, that might not make sense. But ultimately, I mean, biohacking really what it is, it's a term that's used in the natural healthcare world, of course, for our listeners that aren't familiar with it. But it just means you're like tapping into your physiology. I mean, would you agree with that? Like you're tapping into your physiology and trying to change it for the better.
100%. I mean, you think hacking, you think computers, and you are trying to, get into some sort of software or whatever it is and make adjustments to it or find ways to make it better or sometimes worse. And for biology, when we're talking biohacking, we're essentially hacking into our body to find ways to treat ailments or heal better or, feel better, however it might be.
Yeah. And so exactly right. So you're either trying to treat something, whether you have a chronic disease where you're trying to get your body working better, or for somebody that doesn't have it, it can just mean like you're trying to improve your physical health. You're trying to improve your mental health. You're just trying to up your game. So it can mean different things to different people.
Right,
obviously.
Or even live longer. I think longevity.
Yeah, longevity is a huge part of biohacking. And so there's I think when most people think biohacking, they think tools, like the things that we're going to discuss today, like cold plunge and sauna and red light therapy panels. And most people think that like that's it. Like that is biohacking, but biohacking can be that, and it also can be just the God-given stuff, the natural stuff. Like, sauna, why is it effective? It's effective because you're sweating and you're raising your bodily temperature, which you can do by exercising and being outside in the sun. And red light, well, where does red light originate from? It originates from the sun. So it can be natural stuff too, which obviously we're going to discuss both of those today. But ultimately, they both come down to a term that also most people aren't familiar with, which is hormesis.
Yeah, hormesis or hormetic stress. So microdose stress. That's the easiest way to put it. Microdose stressors to essentially build resiliency. When we engineered stress out of our lives, we also inadvertently engineered resiliency out of our lives as well. I think people are a lot sicker. We are constantly sheltered in our homes. I mean, we don't live the life that our ancestors did.
No natural light.
No natural light. We have constant access to food. We don't have scarcity of food at all. So those stressors are just pretty much non-existent to most people, at least in the US. And so I think those microdose stressors are kind of the tap into our biology and the tap into our old ways, I guess you could say, our ancestors' ways. Stress is super beneficial. It can also be detrimental. But stress, in the case that we're talking about, there's a U-shaped curve, right? So you have a little bit of stress is good. No stress leads to stagnation. And too much stress leads to other things like disease.
And I think for most people, when they hear just the word stress in general, it automatically, their mind goes to stress is bad. But it's not always bad.
Right.
Obviously, the horrible financial stress and relationship stress and all the mental stress that people deal with on a daily basis, whatever it is, when you're getting too much of that, it is bad. But that's not what we're talking about here when we're talking about biohacking and hormetic stress. We're talking about introducing good stressors back into your life to hack or tap into your body's physiology to improve that for the better. And there's countless ways to do that. I would say, based on my experience and having conversations with people, like when we talk about biohacking tools, like the number one thing that people go to is a sauna.
Yeah.
Like everybody knows about that one. I'm going to talk a little bit here about like some of the benefits of sauna, because I get that question a lot from people. And sometimes I just, I automatically assume like, well, everybody knows what sauna does and what the benefits are. But it's really endless. So here are some of the big ones. You can reduce stress by sitting in a sauna. You improve heart health. You can relieve pain by soothing and relaxing muscles. Detoxify. Like if I had to go with the number one reason that I do sauna at least one time a week, for me, that's it. That's not the case with everybody, but for me, that's it. It also improves your sleep and recovery. And I could go on and on and on. But what sauna do you like? When you think of it, is it detoxify also, or what are the benefits that you mostly are going for when you use it or recommend it to somebody?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's relief, 100%. Not only do I feel less stressed in that heat environment, we live in Wisconsin. We have very cold weather, and especially right now, the sauna is it's a godsend. And not everyone needs a sauna, but if you're able to get one, there are just so many benefits to it. But for me, it's relief. When I get inside, I feel great. My muscles feel relaxed. But the sweat also to me feels great. I love to get a good sweat in, and running outside is not an option right now.
Yeah.
And so to get that sweat in there is great. But I also like that quiet time too. I think for me,
so true, especially when you get kids.
Yes, yeah, and we just had our 5th, so it's like nonstop. But that small box is nice to be in for a little bit. But the sweating is great. I love the detoxification. For me, I use an infrared sauna. I know there's a lot to be said in the biohacking world.
Oh yeah, there's constant discussion on what's better. Is it the infrared? Is it the steam saunas? And question I get all of the time.
Yeah, I get that one too. But I mean, I think it's, for me, anecdotally, the infrared has been better. I've used both. The high heat is enjoyable in its own way, but more so from an aspect of I feel like I'm going to kick butt. If I'm in the Finnish style sauna, I feel very rewarded at the end of it. I feel like it was a feat for me. It's very stressful to be in a 200+ degree sauna.
And for some people, the research is coming out too much as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that goes with that U-shaped curve of hormetic stress and how too much can also be bad. Yeah. But for the infrared, for me, anecdotally, has been better. I see a lot of pain relief. I see nerve pain relief from that.
And I think, you can find research on anything, obviously, but I think that most of the research with sauna, when it comes to specifically detoxification, that is more on the infrared.
It is.
And it makes sense because the infrared penetrates deeper, of course, into the muscles, the cells, into your body, and you get more of a detoxification effect because of that. And I think it's for a lot of people, it's kind of the opposite of what they would think. They would think like higher temperatures, more sweating, more detoxification, but that's not necessarily true.
Yeah, correct. And it's a different biological mechanism that happens. So in the traditional sauna, you are sitting in there. It's not like you instantly sweat. What happens is your lungs intake that hot air, and then your body regulates that hot air by beginning to sweat. And so that's what happens. But for infrared, it's a little bit different. Those infrared waves penetrate into the cells. And I feel like for me, I just get a much deeper sweat using the infrared.
Yeah, absolutely. Same thing with me. Have you seen the study where they looked at people's urine, sweat, other things? They put them through 30 days of a heavy metal detoxification and compared after 30 days of going through these intense detox protocols that didn't include sauna versus one 20-minute deep sweat infrared sauna session, and they found that people detoxified more in one 20-minute sauna session than they did going through a 30-day detoxification protocol.
Yeah, it's unreal, and I believe it 100%. The detoxification in the sauna, I think, is fantastic, and there's ways you can boost that too. People have done niacin flushes, when they do the sauna.
That's what I do every time. Actually.
Yeah. And I personally don't love the tinging or the stinging of niacin. So, and maybe that could be my next hormetic stress is to add niacin into my sauna sessions to add that stress. And I'm always looking for that. I think adding those extra stressors are great. And I think especially with biohacking and as a parent of 5, I have little to no time to even use my sauna. And so generally when I do the sauna, that is also when I pray the most. That's when I meditate the most.
Such a great point. And so this, actually, I had in my notes here that like later on, I was going to talk about health stacking.
Yeah.
But I think perfect time right now. So for me, and then you can maybe go into a little bit more of like what that looks like for you. If I were to try to fit into my day, whether it's a weekday in the morning before I go to work or what I do on the weekends, which is more when it comes to biohacking stuff, it would be impossible if I didn't stack those. So, there's biohacking, and then I call it health stacking. I'm not sure if I coined that term or somebody else did, but the health stacking is absolutely huge for me. So I don't know that I ever remember a time, maybe early on, where I just went in a sauna and sat there. Like, that's just not what I do. So for me, my sauna session, 100% of the time at home, I do a coffee enema. I do the niacin, so I get more of a detoxification. I force that flush out of me. I lie on my back on my bench with my legs up the wall, which improves blood flow and lymphatic flow. And I put on, this is what made me think of this, I put on 963 hertz on my phone, which is known as the God frequency. And then that is where, like, I'm either lying there relaxing, praying, thinking, journaling, whatever it is, but it's much more than just a sauna detoxification session. There's so much more into that.
Yeah. In my sauna we have it's VRT, the vibrational response therapy, and we can play the God frequency in that as well, and any other frequency. So it's super enjoyable, but definitely not necessary. But it is nice to stack multiple of these different hacks at one time, especially as a parent. I think you just need to be able to fit it in.
Yeah, absolutely. Part of our mission at Foundational Health is researching and partnering with wellness products that we trust. Our one-stop health shop is loaded with brands that we not only have extensively researched, but also trust and use ourselves. You can find everything from low EMF, red light therapy devices, grounding mats and sheets, non-toxic mattresses, saunas that help you detox faster without toxifying you, the best water and air filtration systems on the market, high-quality supplements and foods, exercise and fitness products, our favorite books, and so much more. Go to foundationalhealth365.com, click on Health Shop, and you'll find the links to countless products that you can not only trust, but also many that we have discounts set up just for you. Now let's get back to the podcast. Let's move on to red light. So red light, some of the benefits, and there's many.
It's my favorite.
Yeah, it is. It's my second favorite, but I absolutely love it. So with red light, I would say the number one thing that I get from people when they're asking about getting a red light is they think about like the improvements for skin health, or they're trying to make their face look younger or better, get rid of some wrinkles. In fact, with my wife, after the second pregnancy, she developed really bad varicose veins, and that was the primary reason we bought a red light, actually, from your recommendation.
Yep.
Got a red light for her varicose veins, which it helped. Certainly didn't get rid of them entirely. Mm-hmm. But that's the primary thing that people think of: reducing wrinkles, helping with acne, scarring, whatever it may be. But there's much more than that. And it really, when people say like, well, what can red light help with? It can be endless. Like, I don't want to make it sound like everybody needs a red light and this is the cure-all. But the reason I say that it can be endless is because of the effect on the mitochondria. And I know that you're more of an expert on that.
Right.
So.
Well, yeah. I mean, mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cell. If you remember freshman biology, that's the...
I don't actually. But.
That's the coin that everyone remembers, I feel, is the powerhouse of the cell. And if you think fatigue, if you think low energy, a lot of times it is a mitochondrial deficiency or some sort of issue in the mitochondria. And so red light therapy is amazing for this specifically because it actually targets the mitochondria. And so the idea with red light therapy, and I've been doing red light therapy or photobiomodulation for over 10 years, I believe. And it's incredible. They've got over 50,000 published studies on it. NASA has used red light therapy. But the benefits, I mean, because every cell has that mitochondria, and we're always looking to up our energy in the cell to prevent disease, to prevent illness, or any other sort of ailment. If we stimulate the mitochondria to produce more ATP, our energy currency, it is safe to say that it's going to benefit those cells, and it's going to benefit the area by bringing more oxygen into the area as well. And so for me, red light therapy is kind of a catch-all. We use red light for everything at home, not just for superficial things or deep ligament pain or muscle pain, anything like that. We also use it in our lights around the house too. All of our lamps have now been replaced, like
Same
yourself,
here.
into red. So at nighttime in our house, nobody turns on the big light. It's all red. And so when somebody does, it's always like a shock. We always kind of laugh, like nobody turns on the big light.
I'm laughing because the exact same thing happens in our house. Everybody's like, "Oh my gosh, blue light! What are you doing?"
Yeah, whenever we have a guest over, if they have the lights on, it's like, no, we do red lights at
We
this
call
time.
it mellow mode.
Mellow
at our
mode, I love
house.
it. Yeah. So we turn on all the red lights at home, and that is not the type of red light therapy that most people think of when we're talking about like muscle pain or nerve pain. Red is the color of the sky when the sun sets, and so our brains were designed, thankfully by God, to then start producing melatonin, and so that helps us regulate our circadian rhythm, our sleep cycle. And so when that happens, we turn the red lights on generally around sunset. Inside, we don't get to see the sunset. We found it's had profound effects on our children's sleep.
Exact same thing here.
Yeah, it's made a huge difference for us. And so, yeah, we're not just doing the traditional red light therapy panels, which do cost, hundreds of dollars. We're talking a $6 light bulb or, $10 light bulb. It doesn't have to be anything super expensive. I think that is one affordable change that a lot of people could make in their home and just replace their lamp bulbs with red and light those up at night.
And I think like this is a absolute perfect example of where like a biohacking tool can be so beneficial, because you're right. In the ideal world, and the way that it worked for our ancestors is they did see the sunset probably nearly every single day. And in the ideal world, that's what I would be doing. That's what you would be doing with your family, watching the sunset, which is gorgeous and fun to do. It's just not realistic for most people. And that is where turning on those red light lamps can, and this is, I'm going to mention this just because it popped into my head, but I learned this recently because all of ours currently, we have our red light bulbs in the overhead. Mm-hmm. But I listened to a Huberman podcast recently where he was explaining the benefit of having it in a lamp and the difference, which makes sense. And this is just so fascinating to me that when they do studies of the red light entering your eyes from above versus the red light entering your eyes from a lamp, which is more eye level, it makes a huge difference on how your body produces melatonin and settles down. And it all comes back to our physiology, like the way that God designed us. That red light comes from the sunset, like you mentioned, which is more eye level on the horizon, versus the daytime sun with that blue light being overhead. So fascinating to me how that works. So that's a change based on something that I just learned that we're going to make in our house, where we're going to get more lamps and start adding the lower red light.
I love it. It is a simple change that makes a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so along the same lines of red light, I think a perfect transition into what I call sleep hacks. And so it's a perfect transition because in my opinion, best sleep hack somebody can do starts early in the day. And that's something that you already mentioned, which is balancing your circadian rhythm. And one of the best ways to balance your circadian rhythm is getting proper light entering your eyes to start the day. We have a circadian clock in every single cell in our body, which it doesn't matter how many times I say that, it just fascinates me, like blows my mind. So a circadian clock literally in every cell in our body, and those circadian clocks are very sensitive to a number of different things. And one of them is getting sunlight entering your eyes, ideally sunlight, in the first hour upon waking. And when you do that, it sets your body up for sleep at night. So that is absolutely one of my favorite sleep hacks. Also, something I learned recently, which we were just having this discussion yesterday, is that what I used to do is I would go to the window where I can see the sun rising in the morning, because it's, I get up at around 5 to 6 every single day, so I can see that sun rising, and I would watch it rise and get that light in my windows, and it absolutely wakes me up. But what I learned recently is that because our windows have the UV tint on them, so it doesn't fade our furniture and our carpets and the flooring in our house, it not only reduces that good light entering your eyes to balance your circadian clock, it reduces it by 50-fold, 50x reduction when you're watching that sunlight or getting that sunlight through the window. So, and then if you leave the screen in, open the window, which is what I started doing, it's still like a 10x decrease. So now I have one window in what we call our sunrise room where the screen's been removed, and I can lower that window even in the winter and watch the sunrise, or when the sun is already up, and get that sunlight directly entering my eyes.
I love it. And that's the beauty of a free biohack right there.
Yeah.
I mean, you do not need a red light therapy panel. You are able to 100% just do that and set yourself up for good sleep. You're setting yourself up for a good day.
Yeah. And to me, and I know this might be different for everybody depending on where they're at, but things like that, like to me, that's the definition of what we both have on the back of our shirts right now, which is make health your hobby, where it can absolutely be fun. It doesn't have to be overwhelming, just simple changes that you can incorporate into your life for free, as you mentioned, that can make a profound impact on your sleep and your health, as well as your kids' health as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's hard with today. You have social media, you have influencers, and so you see all these expensive panels. You see expensive saunas and cold plunges, and even different sleep biohacking systems now as well. And yeah, I mean, a lot of this you can do for free.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think that's what both of us want to always be the number one takeaway. Like, yes, we sell saunas on our website, and we sell red lights on our website for the people that want those, can afford them, feel like they need them. But you don't have to have those things to be able to tap into these God-given hormetic stresses, these God-given biohacks. And so when it comes to sleep, that's one of the ways that you can set yourself up for great sleep at night, but then also just simple things like finishing eating 2 to 3 hours before bed. I've told multiple people this in the last year that I feel like that has been, over the last probably 5 years, that is the number one most profound change that I have made in my health, because I used to be a late night eater, and I would eat really within probably like a big meal a half hour before I'd go to bed at night. Like, I shouldn't even admit this because it's really kind of dumb, but I would eat close to a pound of hamburger before I would go to bed at night. I wanted to get the most out of my workouts and fill my body with protein, until reading all of the research and countless research on, which just makes sense. If you do that, you are using all of your body's energy to digest that food, and it is impossible for your body to go into the deep stages of sleep, which just makes so much sense. So that has been the biggest change that I've seen. And then we try to, and this is more challenging, but try to incorporate that with our kids too, where there's a cutoff, like, nope, we don't do food after this time. And so is that something that you guys have done with your family as well?
Yeah, I mean, we try, and that's, again, it's with having children.
Yeah, it's more difficult.
Right, and it does. And just timing of eating in general, can be tough. And for me, I structure the majority of my eating in between noon to 6 for the most part. Sometimes that ends up being 10. It depends what my wife made for breakfast. I might
and
decide.
How good it smells.
Yes, I might decide I want that. But for the most part, I just try to fast for the majority of the evening. My children like to eat a bedtime snack. We always make sure that is fruit, or one thing that we will let them have is yogurt, and that's because of the casein content, which is a slow digesting overnight protein. And so that works pretty well for us. We haven't gone to the full no eating past 6 o'clock or anything yet, but
I'd be lying if I said like that is a hard set rule. And I think that that also is like a really good takeaway. Like, none of these things, like the goal is you're introducing healthy stress into your life, and you shouldn't be stressing about these things.
Right.
So by no means, like, am I going to, like, if I'm eating at 8:30 and I'm going to bed at 9:30, but I'm choosing to eat, it's not like I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, I'm destroying my sleep.
Yeah.
Certainly I do those things at times. So it's not about being perfect, I don't think, with any of these things. It's just about incorporating it where you can, when you can.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so a couple other sleep hacks. I've talked about this one many times on the podcast. This is one that I've really, really stuck with just because I've noticed the difference. Finishing coffee or caffeine intake about 10 hours before bed, profound impact on sleep. We already talked about the red-orange lights. And then here's another one that I haven't talked about enough, because for some people, like buying bulbs and putting red light bulbs in every room in your house, they're just not going to do it. I've talked to many people. In fact, my mom would be one of those who listens to this podcast. Sorry, Mom, but she thinks like when she sees our house lit up red at night, it reminds her of Satan. So she does not want red light bulbs in her house. So I bought her orange light bulbs. But for somebody that doesn't even want to do that, you can get red light or orange light glasses. Yeah. You can wear those glasses around at night. And that is something, so we've got the bulbs everywhere, but we wear those glasses if we're choosing to watch TV later at night. So
filter the blue light. Sometimes you're not going to eliminate all of it, especially if you have a TV. Fortunately, with phones now, you can get rid of most of it, which helps. You can filter a lot of that out. So to have that on at night too is a free hack. I mean, if you have a phone, just put it on that night shift mode or turn it on the red light mode, and that helps a lot as well.
I have seen recently that there are TVs either out or coming out soon where they'll have the same option like our computers do and phones do and tablets do, where you can put it on that nighttime mode, which is absolutely
it's awesome. They've
fantastic.
got screen protectors too for phones that convert the blue into red, and so you're actually getting microdose red light therapy throughout the day as well.
Okay, so let's shift to grounding.
Yeah.
So grounding, also known as earthing, countless benefits. Reduces inflammation. Some people, in fact, one woman that I was talking to recently, and she bought grounding mats and grounding sheets because she doesn't get outside enough, admittedly. And that for her has reduced her pain levels by, and we're talking chronic pain for her, by about 75%. And it did that just in the first week of her starting to ground. So grounding, earthing is one of those things that sounds very, what's the word I'm looking for?
Hippie?
Hippie, yes. Hippie-ish. Sounds to some people like quackery.
Quackery.
It's literally just biology, physiology, science 101. The earth has a magnetic field. It has a resonance. It's known in the science world. Every scientist knows this as the Schumann's resonance. Mm-hmm. And so it is something that's measurable, and it is something that enters our body and has a profound physiological change on our body in so many different ways. And so, you can get grounding mats and grounding sheets and all of those. Admittedly, my family doesn't have those. And it is something that's on our list. I think you have a list as well. Yep. I got my list of these wants for biohacking tools. But we don't have that right now. But what we do have is a basement floor that we can go down and ground on, and the cement floor. We encourage our kids, and then my wife and I also, any chance that we get that we're outside, we're all shoeless. We're all grounding on that earth's surface.
Yeah, absolutely. And I am one of those people too that gets that instant relief from grounding. I feel like specifically like joint pain. If I feel any joint pain, if I were to just step in the grass, let the dog out to go to the bathroom, again, stacking those habits. I would just let the dog out and go out there and step on. There's a stone that I can just put my feet on, and I feel like there's a profound effect immediately from doing that. And I think that comes from your discharging some of that energy. And so I feel like that's, it's been anecdotally very beneficial for myself. But for our kids, they like to, recently they're doing what they call cloud walking. where they run around the entire house barefoot multiple times. So they come in with very red feet because currently there is a
run
ton
around
of
the
snow
house as in outside
on
around
the exterior.
house.
Yeah, so they come in with very very wet and cold feet. So it's been now muddy, but it's been great to see them do that. And I actually got to go out there and do that with them like a week and a half ago. And
That's awesome.
it was, I can only imagine what the neighbors thought when they were driving by and they saw us all running around the house with our pants rolled up and barefoot. But we are
awesome.
definitely that house in the neighborhood. Same thing like your mom said about the red light. We get that same comment as well from people. People most often think that we have a photography suite, and it's like our dark room, and so we use red lights for doing that. But
yeah, that to me like comes back, and this was the discussion I had with my mom. One of my favorite books ever is "What Other People Think of Me Is None of My Business," because I just don't care.
Nope.
Nutridyne is my number one choice for the vast majority of my family supplements. I'm a huge fan of nearly everyone taking what I call the foundational 4 supplements: a multivitamin, a spore-based probiotic, omega-3 fish oil, and vitamin D3 with K2. The large majority of people are deficient in many of these nutrients, and they are the building blocks to gut health, immune system strength, brain health, heart health, and every other aspect of your health. Don't fall into the trap of chasing symptoms with supplements, and instead start to rebuild your health with the foundational 4. We partnered with Nutridyne so that you can save 15% on every order, and not just with the foundational 4, but all of your other supplements as well. Go to foundationalhealth365.com. Click on Shop Brands and then Nutridyne, set up your account, and you're all set to automatically get 15% off all orders. Now let's get back to the Foundational Health Podcast. Okay, so cold plunging. You are the first person to get me into a cold plunge.
You hate the cold.
I hate the cold with a passion, and I try not to use the word hate, and I try to have a positive mindset. I just don't like winter. I don't like cold. My body doesn't respond well to cold. And so I said for years that I don't care how much research I see on cold plunging, I just simply won't do it. And then I did.
Yeah.
And it is hard to explain for somebody that hasn't experienced it. But the natural high that you get from that is, to me, it's unlike anything else. And so could you explain that science? Because this is one of the reasons that I started doing it when you explained that science.
Yeah, that's the perfect example, I think, of hormetic stress. And for me, that's the first thing that pops into my head when I think of that. And because for me, the sauna is relaxing, and so heat for a lot of people is stressful. For me, although I know biologically being stressed, to me it ends up being a de-stressor. Now for cold plunging, that's different. That is an immediate stressor for me. And you see that physiologically, because what happens when you get into cold water or if you turn on a cold shower, the first thing that happens is you can't breathe. And so that's a physiological response. It's one of the best ways to introduce microdose stress. You do not need an expensive cold plunge. You don't even need a tub that you fill up with water. You can just turn the shower on cold, you could start with 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds, and just work your way up to, potentially the whole shower. But that, for me, doing it in the shower just doesn't work, because if I have the ability to turn it on warm or hot, I'm going to do that.
Exact same thing. I was going to say, I can't even explain how much I hate a cold shower, so I just don't do it.
Yeah, and the shower, again, is one of those times as an adult and parent that it's my alone time, and I'm going to relax and enjoy it. So I'm not going to generally stress myself unless I need that extra pick-me-up or that extra wake-up, because you're right, you do get that immediate high that is unlike any other. It's an energy for the rest of the day that has no crash. And from the cold plunging perspective, if you think about stress and throughout your day, if you're yelling in traffic because you are frustrated with somebody on the road, they cut you off, or even just because traffic is slow and you're getting upset and stressed and sweaty and shaky and you feel angry, and you're angry at the kids in the back because of it, that's because you don't know how to regulate your stress very well. Yeah, now, if you were to go into the cold plunge and start doing these microdose stressing, you will find that those types of stressors are less impactful on your health. You should not be physiologically changed or upset. You should not be sick to your stomach when you have to have a confrontation with somebody in your office. Stress looks like cold plunging. You know, when your body is being so physically stressed that you can barely breathe, you know, that I feel like is what real stress looks like. And so throughout your week, if you're able to microdose these little stresses into there, you're able to be more resilient to those types of stresses. And I find that you are just psychologically happier. You are, I don't know, for me, when I get out of the cold plunge, I am immediately a happier and nicer person.
No doubt. And honestly, I haven't even really thought about like how that helps you handle stress better. And I'm sure this is many, many different things. I'm certainly not going to say like, oh, that's why like I do handle things better. But I'm sure cold plunge is a huge part of that as well, because I notice that in my life, like on a regular basis, like things that used to upset me, whether it's somebody cutting me off in traffic. And I'm not going to suggest that it doesn't ever upset me, because certainly still sometimes does.
100%.
But I absolutely handle those things remarkably better. My motto with my kids is parent out of patience and love instead of anger and threats. And that without like, it surprises me sometimes like how well I handle things that happen with my kids. And I know like I'm sure that is a huge, huge part of that. And so for the people that do get addicted in the morning, it's the dopamine, right?
Yeah.
Like, so I say addicted, it sounds like a bad thing, but the people that like Gary Brecka, one of the podcasts that I listen to, he talks about he does that 365 days a year. Like that is his coffee. That's his drug of choice, is when he gets up in the morning, one of the first things he does is a cold plunge. I admittedly don't do that except for in the summer months.
Yep.
So I do it about once a week at this point. I do more of the contrast therapy where it's sauna, cold, sauna, end on cold. Unfortunately, I always want to end on heat, but there's not as much benefit. But what I do on a daily basis, rather, is turning on my bathroom faucet in the morning. And this is that free biohack where you don't have to buy a cold plunge like you said. And by the way, speaking of that, I don't have a cold plunge. I took a chest freezer, a $100 chest freezer, got a built-in bench on the inside because of that little shelf for the motor.
Yep.
And I converted that. You can do this on YouTube. Just, go on YouTube and search for how to convert a cold plunge. But I converted that into our cold plunge in the basement. But the days that I don't use that, it's turning my faucet on and I let it run for about 2 minutes so it's ice cold. And then one of the very first things I do is splashing my face with cold water 10 times. And that, it's like you go from groggy to like, holy cow, I'm ready to work out. I'm ready to stress. I'm ready to stretch, rather. I'm ready to take on the day, whatever it is. And so you can get that dopamine rush from even doing that. If a cold shower sounds awful to you, or a cold plunge sounds even worse. And so one of those simple things that you can do absolutely, and anybody can tap into for free.
Yeah, or even just washing your hands with cold water.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Yes. Yep. I like to cup the water and hold it in my hands. And even that, like, that doesn't sound like a big deal, but you let your water run for a while and then you cup your hands under the cold water and leave it there for 2-3 minutes. It's very, very challenging to do because it hurts.
Yeah, I definitely urge anyone to try that and see what type of a difference it makes. And again, that's not even the full cold shower. It's not jumping into Lake Michigan, in December. It's purely just not using your comfort warm water while washing your hands. You're just merely changing it to slightly less comfortable. And again, that's hormetic stress, is something that's less comfortable for you, and you will adapt to it over time, and you'll, I think, crave more.
It goes back to and it's a really simple one, but what I see on Facebook all the time where people say, do hard S daily.
Yes.
I'll just call it stuff. Do hard stuff daily. And that is one of those simple things, even for me, like holding that water in my hands for 2 to 3 minutes while the water's running on my hands. And you want to quit after 30 seconds. but just saying like, nope, I'm not going to. This isn't going to kill me. I'm going to fight through it. And 2 to 3 minutes. And then when you're done, not only do you feel like that dopamine rush, but you also feel like, hey, yeah, I can do that.
It's a mini win.
Leads to, yeah, correct. And it leads to other wins in your life as well, where you're willing to do more hard stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, let's transition into breathing, something we all do every day. And I think as a result of doing it every day, we absolutely just take it for granted in a sense, and we don't really think about how we should breathe, why we breathe. And I think one of the big things for a lot of people that they haven't heard, or maybe now if they're following natural health type stuff they've heard, but we should be nose breathers. So naturally, that's how we're designed, to be a nose breather, not a mouth breather. And so that's one of the things that I focus on. That was actually really hard for me when I exercised and when I ran. I would notice like I was breathing, like just gasping for air through my mouth. And now that I've, for probably a 5-6 year period of time, I've focused on that nose breathing. It's made a huge difference in my life. That one, just super simple. Like if you do nothing different with your breathing, focus on breathing through your nose, close your mouth. And so that one is a really, really simple one. But then there's something this is also like one of those like grounding where people think it's like one of those hippie things, which is called breathwork. And I actually don't even like the term breathwork because it does sound a little funny to me. So I call it breathing techniques.
Yep.
And so do you have any favorites? So when it comes to breathing techniques, is that something that you've really gotten into a whole lot?
Yeah, every morning during my workout, I do the physiological sigh. So that's awesome. That's my favorite, and that's a Huberman in his library of things that I've learned. And that's definitely one of my favorites. But honestly, I mean, we're born perfect breathers. If you look at a newborn baby, they're breathing through their nose, and if they're not, you wonder what is potentially happening anatomically for them, or how they're sleeping, or what they're sleeping in. But yeah, if you look at a sleeping baby, they're perfect breathers. And so what's kind of interesting is I've recently been looking into adolescent cavities and that connection between breathing and breathing habits.
So fascinating.
Yeah, and that's the number one of the number one causes of adolescent cavities is breathing with your mouth open while they sleep. And so to be able to look into other options, I'm not a mouth taper, but I know a lot of people have a lot of successful.
Is that because of the mustache?
Yeah, no, I don't think it would. I think mostly my children would probably, rip my mustache off in my sleep. So, yeah, no, it's not one of my things yet that I'm doing, but I am not a mouth breather at night, so I don't necessarily feel quite like the need to. Whereas if I felt like I had to, mouth tape is a very inexpensive hack. That's one that you can buy on Amazon, or just use tape if that's what you've got. But there's tons of inexpensive ways to do that and to fix that, your breathing patterns. But yeah, do you have any favorites?
Oh, well, that mouth taping is something that my entire family started doing like 2 years ago. And I know like there's so much controversial info out there where people think it's dangerous, and it's only dangerous if you can't breathe through your nose.
Right.
But my family literally does it 100% of the time. Mouth tape goes with it everywhere, whether we're traveling or not. Mm-hmm. All the kids have mouth tape sitting next to their bed. And so it's the last thing we do right before we go to sleep. After saying our prayers, everybody puts the mouth tape on. And the reason, so I started doing it when I had like dove into it a couple of years ago and dove into the science behind it. And I knew that I was a mouth breather because I would wake up in the morning and just like horrifically dry mouth. And so I started experimenting with it. And not only would I not wake with a dry mouth, but I would wake remarkably more recovered, refreshed. It just felt better, like I got better, deeper sleep. So then Sarah started using it. We started incorporating it with my kids. And now my kids just, like, they won't go to bed without it because they also, if they're at a friend's house or whatever it is, they notice a huge difference as well when they do sleep with it. So that's really a big one. But then also love the physiological sigh. So that physiological sigh, just to explain that, I learned this from the Huberman podcast. It is you're inhaling through your nose. And when you think you've like taken in about all you can, then you stop and you do a second inhale. So it's that second inhale, and then it's followed by a slow exhale through the mouth. What that does is it can absolutely like calm your nervous system, and which is why I'm sure you use it during workouts. It's the same thing that I do. I actually do it after every single set. It's now just a habit for me. I want to calm my nervous system down. And then it's also something I use throughout the day if I do start to feel like, oh my gosh, I'm like stress coming at me and multiple things happening throughout the day. And so I do a few physiological sighs, and it just instantly brings me down. And then I only have one other one. So have you ever done the cyclic hyperventilation?
I have.
Yep. So I've got a point on my drive in the morning. On the weekends, I do it at home. But otherwise, I've got a point on my drive into work in the morning where I know like I get off on the Melby Street exit. And then from there in, it's like 5 minutes into my office, and I do the cyclic hyperventilation.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to give this one a try, like the whole purpose of it is adrenaline rush, dopamine rush. It helps you focus. It just wakes you up, makes you more alert. And so it's deep, rapid inhales through the nose, followed by a relaxed sigh through the mouth. So, and you do that 25 times in a row. So it's... And so I would even do it deeper than that normally. So it's a really like extremely deep inhale through the nose. You're exhaling through your mouth. And then you do that 25 times in a row, followed by a 25-second hold. And I do 5 cycles of that. So it works out perfectly with, again, that 5-minute drive in. But I would encourage anybody to give that a try, because if you combine that with the splashing cold water on your face, like it will absolutely wake you up and sets up success for the day.
Yeah. I mean, disclaimer, Kevin is an expert. Don't recommend trying this driving on your first time.
That's a very good point.
Probably don't hyperventilate yourself on the highway unless you're an expert.
Just for the record, I do it when I get off the highway. However, yes, do not do that while you're driving, especially if you're not used to doing it on a regular basis, because it is called cyclic hyperventilation.
Yes.
I'm glad you brought that up, which means you are hyperventilating on purpose, but you don't want to take that to the extreme and pass out.
Yeah, and it's more, I mean, again, all hormetic stress. So that's another God-given thing that we're biologically engineered with. Similar to, it's the opposite of yawning. You know, I always love the fact that we physiologically yawn to calm down. You know, our body is telling us it's time to get ready for bed, or same thing when you hear a child cry and you hear them sniff through their nose. It's a physiological engineering that helps them calm down.
Yeah. Which, speaking of that, so that's exactly how the physiological sigh technique came about. Like there was this scientist that said like, hey, like this sigh when we get upset or stressed, which everybody does. And he studied cultures around the world, and even these cultures living in the deep Amazon jungle, when they would get upset or stressed, they would do the And so he's like, there's got to be something to this. So he studied like, what does that do to the nervous system? What does that do to our physiology? And then learned like it absolutely calms our nervous system down. And then he studied ways to figure out like, how do we take that even to the next level, which is where the physiological sigh was born.
Yep, I love it.
All right, and so last thing I have on my list that I wanted to cover when it comes to biohacking is just simple things that people can do when it comes to improving their lymphatic system. The lymphatic system is one of those systems in the body that I think is so overlooked and misunderstood. I don't know about misunderstood, just not understood necessarily, the importance of it, that is. And so that lymphatic system is huge when it comes to detoxifying our bodies, which most people are unaware of. It also helps to regulate fluids in our bodies. And then it also helps to, or it does, produce white blood cells.
Yep.
Tremendous benefit, and there's more that it does as well, but those are the big ones. So anytime you can improve your lymphatic flow, your lymphatic system, that's a really, really good thing.
Yes.
So if we start at like spending money on doing that, you can do vibration plates. Like most people are very familiar with those now. They're fantastic, but you can stand on a vibration plate. That improves lymphatic flow. One of my favorites, I don't have a vibration plate currently. One of my favorites is I do a mini rebounder. So I bounce on that mini rebounder as part of my morning routine every single day. But you don't even have to do that. You can do, I already mentioned the legs up the wall. That improves lymphatic flow. Dry brushing, that's something I do every single day as well. So, and then even if you're not willing to do any of those, you can go for walks.
Yeah.
You can exercise. Movement just in general improves that lymphatic flow.
Yeah, throw your arms up and down, jump up and down on the ground. Parents, use your Little Tykes trampolines. Just don't try to hit the floor. I've done all of those too. I think I don't have any sort of lymphatic biohacking equipment, but I do find it's to be super beneficial, especially pre-workout, is to just throw my arms up and down. And it looks ridiculous. I feel like I would not want to see myself in that stage.
In front of the mirror.
But that's the first thing I do before I work out is I do a little bit of that where I'm just kind of flailing my arms around. But it feels great. I think that's super beneficial. And yeah, it's become a part of my daily routine.
All right, so to finish up with biohacking here, some questions that I got from a few people. If you had to choose one biohacking tool, so not the free stuff, but like a bought tool, if you had to choose just one, which I'm sure is difficult, but only one that you could use for the rest of your life. I know you already said red light's favorite, so is that the answer?
It is, yeah. And that's just, again, anecdotally for me, it's been the most beneficial. I think that it is probably one of the main reasons that I am off those 7 medications. I think for me, I needed to regulate my energy in my body. And again, that comes to immune regulation, that comes to, pain, it comes to stress. Everything. If you are able to regulate your energy, I think it makes a big difference. And so for me, red light therapy has been the big one. We do have big panels that we use. We've got handheld. We have laser that we use. I'm a huge fan of the photobiomodulation.
And then if you had to pick number 2, a second one, what would that be?
I think PEMF. I think we didn't talk about it. There's a lot of science that goes into that one, but the pulse electromagnetic field therapy, it's like grounding on steroids, I think.
Yeah, that's how I describe it.
I once had a good conversation with Dr. Pollack. He's kind of the grandfather of using PEMF in traditional medicine. And I think for me, that's, again, it's a great pain relief. We use it. My wife uses it for back pain or whatever she's having pain. We use it on our kids. So there's lots of options.
Yeah, so for me, number 1, I got to go with sauna. Like I just can't imagine my life without my sauna. Number 2 is the red light panel, and then if I'm throwing a third in, it is absolutely PEMF, or our PEMF mat and our PEMF pillow. But it's really hard to just say I can't imagine having to give up one of those. So you're really kind of all combined for top 3. And then if you had to pick your top 3 God-given free biohacks, what are those for you?
Yeah, I would say sunlight is probably the big one, not just in the morning or not just at night. I think even just during the day, I think being able to get that vitamin D is huge. I think for me, it changes my emotional state for sure. And we do see that all the time with people with seasonal affective disorder here in Wisconsin, Minnesota. They don't get enough sunlight. And then we have higher instances of depression, anxiety.
Yeah. So for me, also same thing. Like I feel like my body just craves the sun. So number 1, absolutely sunlight. And then number 2 just comes along with sunlight naturally. You're just out in the fresh air, just breathing in that fresh air. And then 3, grounding while I'm doing that. So to me, there is my absolutely, and thankfully my wife shares this with me. Like if we have our top favorite thing that we can absolutely do, it is walking in the sunlight on a sandy beach in our bare feet. Fresh air, sunlight, grounding, all at the same time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't give you 3, so that I would say mine are the same. Yep, I'm along that same. It's all what we were given, I believe, by God to help us heal and to help us regulate. I think we live in. Everyone's in the city, and I feel like people generally are happier in the country. They're healthier in the country. You hear it all the time where women tried, multiple times to have children, and they live in a city, and then they move out of the city, and all of a sudden they are now fertile when they were told that they were totally infertile, and they have their first child. So I think that our environments play a big role in that, and I think it's just you're either more connected to Earth or you're less connected from it based on where you live. Definitely just try your best to get outside, I think, is the big thing.
Yeah, absolutely. If you only have one takeaway from this discussion, like that's it, Yeah. Get outside and just incorporate what God gave us, the life-giving sun, life-giving air, life-giving earth.
Yes, absolutely.
When it comes to improving your health, you've heard me say many times, test, don't guess. Well, I'm excited to announce that here at Foundational Health, we can help you do just that. Introducing the Foundational Health Blueprint, a very simple at-home lab test and natural wellness program giving you a complete look at your energy pathways, nutrition, stress and mood, the impact of toxic buildup, gut health, and more. If you're looking for one lab test to give you a clear picture of your overall wellness, this is the one. With this test and personalized guidance from our team, you'll have the education and inspiration you need to look better, feel better, and heal better. Go to foundationalhealth365.com, click on lab testing, and order your Foundational Health Blueprint today. Okay, so we've talked about biohacking and hormetic stress, and you mentioned the word anecdotal a few different times. And for people that don't know what that means, that just means like, hey, I know it works for me. And I know for you, like for red light, like that pain reduction and inflammation reduction. Also for me, like that's a really, really big thing. But at the same time, and I know this is true for so many people, they want evidence.
Yep.
They want to see like, how is this affecting my physiology? I want to know more than how I look and how I feel, but am I truly capable of healing better because it is improving my physiology and my numbers? And that's where we go to I've said this countless times, the test, don't guess. And so I think that's a really good transition into how you can find out is the biohacking or the other things. Well, actually, it's not. I shouldn't even say other things because food is biohacking. Like if you intermittent fasting like you do and I do on a regular basis, that's a way of biohacking. So how do we measure? How do we best measure how is that affecting our body and is it doing the right things that we want it to do?
Right. I mean, we're all different, thank God. And so it does make it frustrating, though, because there are a lot of things that work for you that might not work for me. And especially being on this like education side of it, you can talk about something that works fantastic for you and have a client who didn't see any results, and it can be really frustrating for them. And it can honestly deter people a lot because the natural health space, we do see that healing is generally not instant. We live in a very instant gratification society where we always just want a quick fix. And so I think to be able to see these changes over time, and it does take time for a lot of this stuff to work, but to be able to quantify what's happening to your body physiologically, I think is super important. You get tested. I've been tested for just different lab markers in general, but not just the traditional yearly annual physical that most people get. I think we're going to kind of do more of a deep dive on the functional medicine side of lab testing. Have you ever seen that meme where the doctor goes into a funeral and he walks up to the casket and says, I just want to let you know that your lab results came in and they are normal?
I have not actually seen that one ever, which is it's one of those funny, not funny, but so true. Sadly.
Absolutely. It is super true. And it's unfortunate that, you hear it all the time where people say, I went to the doctor, my lab results are normal, and it must just all be in my head. Or, I guess everything's fine. Keep doing what I'm doing, drinking soda and continually eating poor foods and things like that.
I actually, sorry to interrupt you, but I had a discussion with a patient of mine maybe 2 to 3 weeks ago. She said that, and she's very aware of her physiology and her state of health, which she's trying to improve, but it's currently not good. She's very overweight. She's sick all the time and just doesn't feel good. Mm-hmm. And she went in for her annual physical, and the doctor's exact words to her were, "I don't know what to tell you, but you are the picture of health." And she was waiting for him to say, like, more, like, just kidding or something. And he didn't. And she's like, "What do you mean I'm the picture of health?" And he's like, "All your labs look great. You've got no concerns. Just keep doing what you're doing." Well, what she's doing is what you mentioned. Like, she's a soda drinker. She's working on quitting. Yep. She eats processed food. She doesn't exercise. And so I think that's a perfect example. And people hear that all the time. And sadly, not everybody's self-aware like she is, that she knows that's not true. And a lot of people think like, "Oh, great. All right. I can just keep doing what I'm doing."
Yeah, and I think that's the damage there, is they can keep doing what they're doing based on what they're seeing. But yeah, I mean, everyone's biologically different. That's why, somebody can have really good success on the keto diet, and someone gets really sick or gets more migraines on the keto diet. Some people, do really well with high-intensity interval training. I am not one of those people that does really well with high-intensity interval training. And so testing can reveal your unique biology and kind of allows us to get out of that one-size-fits-all plan.
Which I think is so huge, because that is a lot of, both in the traditional medical model as well as in the natural healthcare world, where it is more of that one-size-fits-all. And that's not like bashing on other people. I could be guilty of this as well, where, I recommend the Foundational 4 to everybody, which I stand by in one sense, but at the same time, it's a general recommendation, and it's not true that everybody needs the Foundational 4 100% of the time, and that is where testing, not guessing, comes in.
Yeah, that's where we're going to go from. You kind of move from guessing to measuring. So most of the health advice online is just guesswork. It's not something specific for you. And that's going to be the same with, supplement recommendations, diets, biohacks, any of that. You're just kind of hoping that it works. But unless you're able to do some sort of functional medicine style lab, you're just not going to be able to see the true benefits. And I think when I say functional medicine lab, I mean different than your annual physical, more than just your metabolic panels, more than just your iron and your hemoglobin. A lot of the testing that we do is urine or stool. And the benefit there is we get to see it over more of a kind of extended period of time. It's not just serum, where it's that one instance.
And serum meaning blood.
Blood, right? Yeah. So if we were to, and that goes to say, a lot of times people will do, say, like a testosterone test, and they find out that they're low in testosterone. But then what time of day did they do that test? If somebody wanted to just go get HRT, all they'd have to do is, not sleep well for 3 nights, drink with their buddies, and have a stressful day at work. And they're going to score low on their testosterone, and they're going to be able to move forward with HRT.
So true.
Yeah, and that's not necessarily the best way to do it. I think it's important to test correctly and to just look at a broader spectrum of time. I think a lot of the traditional labs that we see ran are kind of like the check engine light, and the medications we're given is like clearing the code. And the idea is you want to pop the hood to see what's actually ticking and actually investigate what is wrong with your car.
Yeah, I love that analogy. And then going back to the diabetic discussion, if you test your blood sugar, that's looking at what, like the last 12 to 24 hours,
correct,
right?
Yeah.
Which is why they have you fast for 12 hours,
yep.
Right? And so if you ate a candy bar right before you went in there, your blood sugar is going to be high. Like everybody knows that. As opposed to A1C, that's looking at what does your blood sugar look like over the last 3 months. So there's a huge, huge difference there. Did I say that properly? I mean, do you agree with that?
Absolutely. Again, it all comes back to, if we just take that small little snapshot of time, that's not going to give us a whole picture of the human biology. And we see that the same with, other hormones like cortisol. You hear it all the time where people say, I feel super stressed, my cortisol is high, or I can't lose, my midsection body fat because my cortisol is high. And what people don't realize is that cortisol is a very essential hormone. It is the hormone that's going to wake you up in the morning. I mean, if you went to the doctor and if you had your cortisol tested in the morning, it's going to be flagged as high. And that's a good thing because we need the cortisol to wake up. And then after that, we see it slowly reduce, which is that cortisol awakening response. And then eventually our body produces melatonin to sleep. These are those God-given functions. And when we test them out of context, based on the just symptoms, we're going to run into issues. We're going to be force-fed medications that we're going to be on the rest of our life because we didn't retest that same marker a lot of the time.
And I think the big takeaway there is that like a regular test, and the cortisol is a perfect example of this in addition to the blood sugar, all you're doing with a regular test at times is it's a picture in time.
Yeah.
And the cortisol, as you mentioned, you get it tested in the morning, it's flagged as high, and now you're being treated for having high cortisol when that actually is the normal bodily response. Whereas if they then, the next time you go in, they look at it a little bit later in the day because they don't tell you what time they want to test it.
Right.
They look at it later in the day and it's lower, and then you'll say, well, it's normal. Well, the problem comes where it's high all day long, correct? Mm-hmm. And so that's more of what you want to look at is that cortisol response.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why the people we see the most are definitely people who have made those nutrition modifications that their dietitian recommended. They're on the medication that their doctor recommended. They are, exercising like their trainer asked them to, and they feel defeated. Their general labs look normal. They have normal vitamin D. They have normal omega-3s. And so one of the tests that we kind of specialize in, and with Foundational Health, we do the Foundational Health Blueprint. This is the organic acid profile. We test, it's a urine test. You do a first catch right away in the morning. It's provocative. It's very in-depth. Because of what it looks at the end product of your metabolism. It's not looking at those specific markers of, vitamin D right now. And so what happens is your genetics, whether you're exposed to something that you should be exposed to or not, like a toxin or environmental exposure, your body's going to metabolize it different. You're going to have these metabolites excreted through your urine. When you measure these, you can see what type of exposures you might have had, whether it be mold, virus, bacteria, different chemicals, things like that. But also that goes to say with nutrient levels too. So you might be taking B12 vitamin to help with energy, and your body may not be able to put that into the correct pathway to essentially utilize the B12.
And does that come down to the whole how well you methylate?
Yeah, methylation pathways, and we can go into MTHFR, and I know we've done an episode on MTHFR as well. But for this, it goes down to, just detoxification pathways in general. Okay. And we do go through detoxification in the OAP. There's a whole section on detoxification, which is fantastic. With that being said, we do go into many specific systems, I guess you could say. The first thing we look at is your mitochondrial function. So we talked about this earlier, mitochondria. It's that powerhouse of your cell. And it's a great place to start. I feel like when people have low energy or fatigue, you can start to look into mitochondrial dysfunction.
I mean, there's so much research now that even shows the mitochondria is the key to longevity.
Absolutely.
That is, if you wanna live a long life, but not just a long life, but a long life with good quality of life, mitochondria is the key to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think it's important that if you're having any of those types of symptoms that we test it, and then we're able to unlock that energy again. The next thing we look at is fatty acid oxidation. That's the process of how we break down fats. Clients will come to us with issues where they're struggling with weight loss, and a lot of that comes down to how are they able to tap into their fat energy stores to burn that fat. Again, that kind of goes back to keto. and burning fat as a fuel source.
That's
which is
actually what I was going to ask.
Yeah, it's a fantastic fuel source. So if you can tap into it, your body will use that fat as energy and you'll burn it right off of your body. So, and that's why people lose a lot of weight on keto generally. But again, if your fatty acid oxidation is sluggish or, not working how it should, this is something we could see on the test, and that might be why keto didn't work for you.
Which is huge for people because I've done, over 25 years, I have done countless workshops on different topics, but especially on weight loss. And we've had the annual weight loss challenges. And the frustration with so many people so many times, and we'll see this just with family members, like you can have one family member that's doing the exact same thing as the other family member, and the one drops 40 pounds in the first 2 months of this challenge, and the other drops maybe a pound. Or then you have those people that they'll drop those initial 10 pounds and they're all excited, but then 30 days later, they've still plateaued and they can't lose another pound. And I'm assuming then that a lot of that comes back to what you see with that fatty acid utilization. And
Yep, it does, absolutely. And that's the same thing with nutrients in general. If you look at the standard American diet, the majority of the population is deficient in the nutrients that we need to have a healthy body. If we can individualize the nutrients that you need, and it doesn't even have to be the nutrients necessary, like if you're testing specific lab markers for an exact nutrient, sometimes those nutrients are used as a cofactor in other biological processes of the body. So it's not always the end product. Sometimes that nutrient is necessary to help your body complete other projects.
So if we kind of bring that home for that person that has plateaued and they just, no matter what they're doing, they're staying the course, they're even up in their game, they can't lose any more weight, or they just didn't lose any weight to begin with. How does this test help? I mean, okay, so you can get to the root cause, you can see why they're not burning fat properly or whatever it is, or what nutrient deficiencies are, but then like what's the action step there?
Yeah, and that's the benefit of this over just traditional lab values. I think we get to see, organic acids, being that they're a byproduct of processes in the body. The numbers that we're looking at are actually the byproducts of each individual part of the cycle. Generally, like the Krebs cycle is one that we dig into. If there are any blocks, we generally see that in your urine, and so we can see specifically where in that metabolic process that you're struggling, whether it be with detoxification, methylation, or fatty oxidation, and then we're able to address it generally with either whole foods or lifestyle modifications. Stress and mood's another big one that we look at with the OAP. So how are you producing neurotransmitters? This is going to be huge with people with anxiety and depression. And as you know, most of those neurotransmitters are created in the gut. And so that is a very, I don't want to say easy one to adjust with lifestyle modifications, but generally people end up doing really well with diet and exercise for that specific pathway.
For the listeners that don't know, like, what is a neurotransmitter? What are those?
Yeah, a neurotransmitter is the way that your body communicates. So it's the communication pathways. You could think of it as the way your brain communicates to your nerves, but you can also think about it in the way of how your body is told to begin doing a process. Those neurotransmitters are needed as well during that.
And things like dopamine and...
Dopamine, serotonin is specifically the ones that we're looking at. Toxic impacts is another one that we're going to look at. So what things are you being exposed to that are hindering your health, but also how are your detoxification pathways working? We're not just looking at a specific marker in your serum. We're looking at how your body is actually going to excrete this in your urine. And then we also get to check your microbiome metabolites. That's the most important relationship in your body, that intestinal microbiome, and any other patterns that are showing us any sort of dysbiosis or kind of unevenness in our body and something that our body is struggling to function.
Like between the good bacteria,
between
the bad bacteria in the gut.
Yeah, yep. So we want to make sure that everything is even. We don't want to have too much bad. We definitely want to have a lot of good bacteria in the gut. We're not looking for just a supplement to heal people. Otherwise, we're just a drug dealer. We're no different than, in the medical field and just giving a supplement for this ailment, or, it's not it goes back to the one size fits all protocols. It's not that. We're definitely trying to find the root cause, and that to me is just fascinating. I love looking into the human body and seeing those connections that maybe are missing. And I just love the research portion of that.
This is where it comes down to what we call the 5 pillars of foundational health, right?
Yeah.
Where we can make recommendations on lifestyle changes for those people that are willing and want to actually make those changes, and you can start to fix your physiology. And then whether it's a retest or just based on how you feel, absolutely you can change your physiology, not just in the short term, but in the long term, which is going to lead to better health and better longevity.
That's right.
So I hope you guys thoroughly enjoyed this discussion. I know that I did. I know I absolutely want to do this again. We could pick and choose any topic to do this on. So until next time, make health your hobby. Thank you for listening to the Foundational Health Podcast. As always, if you would like to learn more about making health your hobby, visit our website at foundationalhealth365.com and follow me on Facebook at Kevin Schultz, DC, Foundational Health.